starting from rebuttal, we heard about that the investments that they will help us in economic crises, in our economic situation. But first of all, we want to say that our citizens can also make investments, that we can attract money from the world international institutions and funds. Also, we can took credits or something like this. Also, we don't prohibit to own foreign companies, for foreign countries. We don't prohibit to own not essential spheres, not essential economic economic infrastructure. So also about the later nationalization, we can say that we want to know how to manage these big, huge enterprises, these big companies, and it will be much harder to us with this later nationalization. So we want to stop this foreign ownership and ban it now. Also about the technologies, we want to say that we can buy the technologies from the other country. The next thing that I would continue the line of my teammates, and I can say that this ban will really helps us to make our country more stable and securable. So we really want to protect our citizens, and we think that this development of the infrastructure and something like stock crises that our opposition give us is not such important for us as a stability and security. Why? Because, as Martin had said, the foreign countries can influence for us in such like we have diplomatic troubles. For example, if the other countries own our telecommunications, our media, our telephones, they control the information that our people receive. Yes. And we also want to say that who has the information, this person runs the world. This, yes, okay.
So would you ban Facebook in this country?
No, because other country can't buy the Facebook and make. Okay. We want to say that the stability that we will have is more important for our citizens, because we will be more secured and more confident in our future. And we're trying to say that status future for us is more important, because we can have this huge risk. Yes, now we have some development, some stability, some investment, some money, but in future we have a big risk of all our country will change to bad, because the foreign ownership is a great instrument to manipulate other countries. Because if we will have some diplomatic trouble, some conflicts with other country, so it will have some instruments to influence for us, and it will really can manipulate us. And so we want to have this freedom. Okay. about Facebook, we want to say that it is a diplomatic international company, and it is not dependent from other countries. What we have from our speech is that the stability and security is more important for us because in future we can have a lot of problems with this ownership, and we can say that the possibility of such problems is really huge because the other country who owns such important economic infrastructure really can manipulate us and really can use this in even little conflicts with our country. So we really think that we can lose this development, and we really care about our security, and we think our people will live happier in the country when the government control the important infrastructure and control important spheres, and people will feel themselves really more secure. So we beg you to propose.
Thank you very much indeed. And then calling the deputy leader of the opposition to close the case from the opening opposition.
Okay, so by now we have heard about national security and spying and those kind of things. So what our side we would like to clarify here is that if we actually ban countries from having those kind of infrastructures in your country, first of all, it gives very strong message. It gives a message that you don't actually trust and you don't want them in your country. And if you don't want them in your country, like having telecommunications or those kind of things, it gives a strong message of not having trust, which almost sounds already that we are in some kind of crisis. And if we are not in that crisis yet, giving that message that there is no trust at all is not a good way to actually get out or prevent crisis. So what we want to say also here is that, first of all, this is not a good way to prevent crisis. It gives a message of mistrust. It also kind of gives this idea that you want to stay independent and you are not open having cooperation with other countries. Because yes, if you do this, you might think that, oh, there are some states that you might be afraid of. Then there are probably some states that you actually would want to have some kind of independence of them, not independence, but you would like to have some kind of cooperation with them. And by actually banning all people who have other citizenships from having these kind of things in your country, it means that you also lose a lot of people who could help you to develop your infrastructures, who would help you to develop your telecommunications, who could give a lot to your country. Yes?
A message would be working, it would be a message against some definite countries. It's a message not definite countries. If you respect our country, you understand logic why we should do in order to protect our security.
Yes, so if we actually ban from some countries, then we tell them that, yeah, there is no trust at all, we don't want you here, which is a quite strong message to give, which also pretty much sounds like you are already in the crisis at that point. And I think what I heard was that this is that you would ban all the 48 countries. Was it coming from here? So if you ban all the countries, that means you would also ban France having telecommunication in your country. It would mean that if you would ban countries that you probably want to have a very good relationship with and who you want to kind of keep the relationship growing and going further. So we don't want that. First of all, we want to have some kind of relationship with the countries we feel that we are maybe in the edge, and we kind of want to make sure that things don't go over that edge. Then it's better to have some kind of relationship. And what is a better way to have a relationship than have some interest, common interest, and having their invest in your country is a good way to actually having a communication with them, and like also it's a very good thing for the country to have invest from those countries. So I don't think that it would be a good thing to ban those people coming here, because we would cut quite many ways of having some kind of communication with these kind of countries. But when we speak about countries you are not afraid of and you kind of do want to have some kind of help, or you want to understand some things more, you would also cut those ties and you would have less. Yes.
Still, we are speaking just about prohibiting investment only in few spheres of economy. We're still giving them a chance to invest in...
That's very true. Just telecommunication, which means that you are afraid that they are spying. They are probably spying you anyway, so it doesn't work really. Transportation, yeah, if there would be a war, you're afraid that they would do something. Like all these things just tells that you are thinking about what if we would be in a war, how could we protect ourselves, and if we are not in a war yet, then I think it's a very bad message. If we are, that's a different thing, but the thing is that you are kind of cutting many things, and you are telling that we don't trust you because we don't want you to have this peculiar invest in our country. But when you want to have like more invest in your country, the trust is the most important thing, and then showing trust is important too. So if you say one country that, okay, we do want this kind of invest, but we don't want that kind of invest, you're actually just saying that, hey, we don't trust you, you can come here and make money to us, but we don't want you to do this and this and this. If you want them to do different kind of invest too, you must somehow have a good relationship. And how is a good relationship? Like, is it a really good relationship if you have to say that, okay, you are not allowed to come here and have a telecommunication firm? It's not good for your own country, like we said. Like, you probably do need help from other countries. You do need to have other companies from different countries in your country. And yeah, if you just say that we don't want you, it's pretty clear what we are talking about, and that we are talking about that you are scary and you are big and we want to ban you. So because we can say that we just ban you, we are banning everyone, and we are alone then. That's expensive.
If you want to invest in other countries, what really matters for you, how you receive the money from these spheres. Not important such believe this country for you, and only factors of money is important for you.
Yeah, of course the money is important. We were speaking about national security too, so I guess in this case national security is important too. But what we are trying to say is that by banning those countries from your by banning them doesn't make your country safer, and it also makes the invest go away because they don't feel the trust. So pretty much what we are trying to say, if we want to have a good relationship with them, we should have this interdependency. We should have them here, they should have some kind of interest, and we should cooperate. So we will have a good relationship, and then we can go further and like prevent crises. And the other thing is, of course, we do want to have the invest that makes money. Other kind of investing in telecommunications, so thank you.
Thank you for giving my speech. I'm like a member of the government to develop the cases from the government side.
colleagues in their afternoons. In the first part of the speech, I want to make some rebuttal, and then we'll move on to the constructive point. So, Mr. Speaker, the balance of the opposition is telling us a lot about the crises and that this way will somehow stop developing of these crises. Our bench is saying no. Mr. Speaker, we still think that if the one operating company, which has a lot of actives in different countries, when it is affected by crisis, by a lot of many factors, the fall of their price on the stock exchange, I don't know, war in their headquarters, country headquarters, so on and so forth, it will affect every national economy where the enterprise is settled. What the result? The result is the decrease in level of salaries for those workers who are working on these enterprises in our country, but owned for their metropolitan headquarters, for the big company. Yeah. As a result, it will bring big effect on our economy because our people will not get salaries from that company which is under crisis. Secondly, we can lose a lot of countries which want to assist us, give some help for us. Come on, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of instruments which are giving the help for such countries, for growing countries, and so on and so forth. European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, World Bank, other institutions. We do not have to sell our enterprises to get new technology. No, we can find assistance from the big financial instruments, which IMF, for example. Still, there are a lot of other variants how to work with it. We doesn't need to give our enterprises, which actually are essential for us. We do not have competence on these markets where there are only one or two operators. Just like the energy carriers, transportation. Most of all, this is those companies where you need a lot of infrastructure, and there are only one operator who operating in this country. Now, Mr. Speaker, let's move on. Let's move on to the construction point. What we're going to speak about now? First point, it is like the this foreign ownership, like the instrument of influence, and I will say like very hard influence. We have the example. Now we have a conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and it is well-known fact that for several years Russia was owning a lot of such essential enterprises in Ukraine. They were owning companies in the energy carrier service. They still owning the companies in the telecommunications service like Odessa and Kyivstar, which are owned by Russians. And we have a right example which showing that the position of opposition is not really true. In the year of 2005, after the Orange Revolution, Russia just stopped supplying oil to Ukraine just because they didn't like the political position of our country. Basically, they were influencing on our economy using just this energy carrier service. So basically, we show you that this is a real case when using these companies, it will make the influence for our country. Now, let's speak about like the instrument of the soft influence, when money are instruments of the soft influence. Mr. Speaker, the world is slightly different now, even how it was a few years ago. A few years ago, we really had the free movement of money, the free movement of people. But now we see that there are a lot of integrational processes are appearing on the world map. We see the appearance of big China, which are using its state companies in the countries which are around China, just to influence on this economics of the countries which are around it. We see how the United States is trying to influence a lot of companies just using investments in the national economies, and is going on like with Ukraine too. Now we say that if we can leave these companies in the hands of our own investors, it will save us from being influenced like in a hard way, so like in a soft way, like there are a lot of companies doing. Let's go one further. When we say that about efficiency of these companies, when it owned by by big headquarters abroad or by our investors. We say that when it is a big mechanism, when it is a big company, no thank you, we say that those profits which are coming from our company should be divided for several parts, and a bigger part of it will go to the headquarters abroad and will not left in Ukraine or in another country which is owning this thing. this company. But in that moment when our own investor owning it, we say that the more part of the money are living here in the territory of our country and will be divided and supplied for our citizens more effectively if it will be made by the investor or another investor. Moreover, just to developing the point of soft influence, those spheres like telecommunication, energy sources, transportation are the most those spheres which are bringing most part of benefits, more money for our investor. What we are speaking about? We are speaking about that fact that we can make our own investors which can play on abroad and investing in other spheres of economy abroad, in other countries. Yes, please.
Importing oil from Russia is not foreign ownership. And second, the crisis of the Ukraine couldn't happen earlier.
I understood you. Russia was not importing. They are owners of several Ukrainian companies which were producing oil from our oil factories in Ukraine. But they just stopped the work of these oil factories. What we are speaking about? We're speaking about the formation of several class of Ukrainian investors and business people, or other country, I'm sorry, which can bring its influence of our country abroad, influencing, bringing in investments which they earned on these enterprises inside of the country. Basically, they can bring our influence. Not we will be influenced by some state, but we can be a subject of influence for other countries. So, dear Mr. Speaker, just to sum up what I just tried to say, we have several points of how investment can be the influence for our company, and that these essential spheres of economy can be a real mechanism how to influence in life. From other point, we showed you what benefits will bring for our country if we will grow up our own investors and businessmen, and we will grow up our own economy. That's why I back to Mr. Speaker to propose.
Thank you very much, and I would like to call the member of the opposition to the voting cases here.
So first of all, I'll start with a rebuttal. So there was a lot of talks about crisis and how we will survive our economy or companies will survive this crisis. So let's set it up. Likelihood that that foreigner international company will survive in a crisis is higher than national companies have, because if we assume that that I'll talk later in my case, that if we assume that probably if this company came to our country, it's less developed than the Western world, or it doesn't have such a good infrastructure. So with the international support, the likelihood is that they will stand crisis, and that our main core economy links will stay. The crisis is higher, and I'll talk later about in my rebuttal. So the protection of economy is on our side of the bench. So also the government talked about that they can these businesses, international companies can be in our market, but they can be in less essential links of our economy. But I will show you in our case why we care about this basement of our economy, and why we only foreigner businesses can do best job in helping us out to make our economy prosper. Also, there was example about Facebook. So let's see let's think that if our state failed to develop such a threat to world's freedom of speech or world's freedom of information, so we can't leave our people, our citizens, without such a threat to world's without it. So we can't ban such a things that have a threat to such a base rights of our citizens. Also, what second closing government talked about, that these foreigner investors, foreigner companies completely control our economy. But let's think, if these companies are such essential and such influential and such big in our world's market, so it will influence behavior of our investors anyway. So investors of our country is people who have their own stimulus and their own interests. So, and there is no 100% assured that if something happened on the world, this company stocks crash, or they will want to manipulate our economy. Sorry, later. Want to manipulate our economy, so they won't have. So they won't influence our important infrastructure owned by our investors. So what are you talking about? That our investors are also influenced by this company. If they are such a big player on this world's market, they will influence our economy anyway. And I'll talk about why we need them to own our important economy as infrastructure. There's a different side of this argument. First of all, it's social. Let us think why they came to our market at first place. There are two ways of this. Firstly, maybe there was nobody in our country who can do this, who can own our important infrastructure at that time, or they did it best. So there is tenders, and they won our national companies. So it means that these businesses, they are the best in our market, and this means that they provide best services to our citizens. And plus, if our people work on that international companies, work in that economical infrastructure that owned by international companies, they will gain Western working experience. What that means? This means that these people will gain this experience in what way? They will know what they deserve. Because sometimes we see that in the third world, and probably if, as I talked later, probably if these companies came to our market at first place, it means that our country is not developed enough to make to make our economy up by our own. So it means that we lack of that Western experience, and this company give it to our workers. It means that these people will gain this sense of what they deserve, what the working rights have to be. So we see how it. So they will see how to do things in a good way. So they get used to doing these good things that makes our economy better. So this will lead that our government won't use our people anymore. They won't give them words that do not fit these Western values and Western experience. So our people and our businesses will work as it have to, and in a good way. So people will do that in other businesses that is not in our important economical infrastructure, not in this core. And also why it will influence, and this is good for our businesses and economy at first of all, because first people talked about politics and diplomacy much, but we think that economy is what drives this political relationship between countries. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, if we have these international companies on our market, it means that we have free competition. No, if we ban these companies, we will harm this free competition. So our national businesses won't try to reach that Western standards of working rights, of how to do business. And also we see that these high standards will push our businesses. And if it's such a basement of our economy, if we see economy as a mechanism, if one base core links work good, and we prove that Western owned by foreigner companies and businesses will work better than ours at this time of history of our country. It means that if the core links of the mechanism works good, it means that it will make other links of our economy, smaller businesses and other spheres of our lives do better jobs and work better. And also we talk that it influences politics. If our economics interacts with others. It means that it creates a base for future economic and political agreements, and that will explain my teammate.
Thank you very much, and I call the lead speaker from the government banks. Here.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Mr. Speaker, I would like to start with a few points of rebuttal, and then I'll show why actually our team won this game. First of all, the coalition opposition told us that foreign investors in our country provide us with better working conditions, with better services, and etc., and in this way they develop our economies, and in this way they develop our ownerships. But let me ask you, how do you imagine the progress of our own economy in case when we don't give any chance to our own investors to develop themselves, and in case when we, yes, of course we have Western experience, we have Western examples of how the ideal economy should look like, but it wouldn't work in case when we don't give chance to our investors, to our own investors, to invest actually their money to our companies and provide in our companies better services, better working conditions, better salaries, etc., etc. So in this case, you also were talking about investors, about our own investors who have their own interests and who are interested only in money and only in money for themselves. But let me remind you that when we're talking about infrastructure, these companies are mostly national companies. There are and investors wouldn't be so interested in their own prosperity because we have a lot of national companies in that branches, in that spheres of economy. You also told us about competition, but let me also remind you that infrastructure, the branch of economy, is quite a closed market, and there can't be a lot of transportation companies, there can't be a lot of telecommunication companies, so the point about competition isn't quite relevant in that case. So what we are talking about? We are talking about that selling companies in hands of our own investors, in this way we keep most part of money for ourselves, and the most part of money from these companies will be kept in our country, will be kept, yes, in hands of our investors, but this money actually gives us not only the flow of money, but it also gives us an influence. And as my teammate already said, we can be not an object of influence, but a subject of influence. And in this way, giving power to our investors, giving priority to our investors, we can broaden these investments outside the borders of our country. And this way, we can give a chance to our investors to become those foreign investors we are talking about. So in this way, we ourselves become the investors, not only in our companies inside our country, but also outside. And this way, we can become such a subject of influence that we actually want to, that actually foreign companies are now for ourselves. What is more, as also was said by my teammate, ownership can be either the instrument of high influence or the instrument of soft influence, and that was a great example of Russia and Ukraine, of Russia in 2005, who just stopped providing our fuel and oil to our country because it just didn't like the politics our country was going on. And when we are talking about money like instrument of soft influence, we can see in the example of Asian countries, for example, like China, that ownership in other countries can be an instrument of manipulation of economics of these countries. So the most efficient way to prevent being such an object of manipulation, to prevent our economy from manipulation of the other countries, is to give a chance to our own investors just to invest their money to these countries and to develop this way our economy, our investors, and give them chance to develop our economy. Yes.
So after cutting all the ties to other businesses, like, are you ready for this? With competition, prices will go up if you don't have competition when it comes to corruption. Is this actually manageable? Is it
Well,
better for you to
we're actually not talking in this case about I don't know, such a categorical, such a radical cases like corruption or something else. So it's not quite relevant to this case. And what we are talking about is that is also the point that was in the opposition in the first case was about crisis, that in way of foreign investments we can stop crisis. But we also have already said that no, crisis will affect each national economy where the company has its ownership, and it also be as bad to our economy as it influences the headquarters of the company. So we strongly believe that that the foreign ownership of our companies of such important branches of economy as infrastructure should be banned. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for my speech, and I told the last debate is some of the debate from the opposition side.
So, THBT, what do we actually see in this debate? We have two positions. The proposition trying to persuade us that dependency has on us, that we can't be dependent in this sphere from other people, and they are scared us with some intervention case, and they're talking about hard and soft influence which the country would provide. What the first opposition said is that it would lead to development. But I want to explain why actually arguing. So there's several reasons. First, when the proposition say that dependency really hurts our state, our opposition Mr. Position provides arguments that this is really mentally spoil the kind of companies which fail would spoil mentally relationship between countries, but only my team provides the main reason why it wouldn't happen. The reason is the integration between countries. The reason is that economic integration often leads to political integration, and the real thing is that economy really rules politics. The big company have a huge lobby in the government of any state. The country always act in a way to receive more money, to provide their people the most prosperity, the most money, the good life which they deserve. So the economy really wins. And what my teammate said, this company isn't interested in war, that they isn't interested in some things that could damage the business in any country. So, for example, if we stop some business, for example, in Ukraine, telecommunication business, it actually hurts the revenue of the actual telecommunication company, which provides the reason that this company don't want it to be done. And why this company don't want it to be done? The government also don't want it to be done, because this company provides the revenue to the country. A little bit later. Okay, so and when the two countries is really integrated, the war or some tension between them is really hard to imagine. For example, if we trying to in our world, if we're trying to see how can conflict between France and Germany would happen, we actually see that both Germany or France is actually interested in this, because when one country attacks another, it's a huge harm to the economy of both countries, because they are really integrated, they are close, their companies is actually allocated in both countries. There is strong economic dependencies for the resources, details, and so on. So we prove that this tension, this war won't actually happen, and this is the main argument which leads us this debate. Okay.
Russia and Georgia, Russia and Ukraine, those countries which were really integrated to each other, but that war started, and they were using these enterprises to influence these countries.
I understand it, guys. So let's don't take about only Russia. We are talking about international community, and when we're talking about Russia, we have some crazy president who don't act with which decide for himself, which don't provide actually meaningful decision, and which don't. And what we see now is that the economy of Russia is really in so deep. Actually, okay, it's actually very low. So we see that Russia, any meaningful president of Russia wouldn't do it, and so I really actually see that the connection between this country wasn't so big, and it's actually a trade relationship. So if they were more integrated, it doesn't really happen. No sense. Okay, and the next reason, the main line which you have to prove in this debate is actually the prosperity of people. Which team leads the case that provides the case that could actually provide a good life to people? And our team shows that if this company would work, they are really developed. They really provide high, very good services. And the people deserve to have a good services. The people deserve to have a good life. Because I want to call to somebody, I want the best connection I could have. If I want to go for a walk or ride in a car to some place, I want the best road. And what we see is that if the foreign company actually owns this market, that means that they are the best and they can provide the best services. And people actually gain a great benefit from this. So, moreover, when this company works in our country, there is a lot of investment which first position team group, and where there is a lot of investments, there is a lot of workplace. The workplace is in quite high quality, high salary, because this company is actually high developed and they care about people, they care about high standards. And the main thing, if we don't want the company even somehow could operate in a harmful way to us, we still have this legislation that could protect us from some behavior. So we actually see that allowing this company to operate in our state actually provide the growth of economic, the happiness of people, and the more safety to the country, and there actually can't be any reasonable explanation of what propositions are trying to persuade us. That can be wasn't, can be any tension between these countries which is really integrated. So I am very proud to oppose this motion.
Thank you very much. Shake your hands, hug in case, but please do that on side. Okay. And we'll make the call and call you to keyboard and figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ні.